Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with a brand new episode of Trenton Chappell Live. This one's a really cool episode. Uh, I haven't known him that long, but he's a family friend of ours, and he is coming on to talk about some cool stuff in the yoga world. So I'm not of knowledge of that world, so I'm ready to educate myself. He it's a James Nohinek, correct? I hope I got that right.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
got yelled at
Good.
for saying it wrong by Stephanie. And shout out to you, Stephanie, for setting this up. But James, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Of course, of course. So let's get this. Let's knock down the wall. You're a yoga instructor, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yoga instructor, ayurveda practitioner with an emphasis more on the ayurveda.
Mhm. And how long have you been
Yeah,
doing that for?
about 6 years.
60. Wow. Oh,
Yeah,
I want to know what got you into doing all this stuff.
yeah. So, um, my wife was teaching yoga before me. Um, when we got together, I knew nothing about yoga or natural medicine, which is the ayurveda that I mentioned, and I was of a mind to uh, more of a mind that was focused on military and trying to enlist in the military at the time,
Mm,
and uh, slowly but surely slowly from being getting together with my wife and slowly moved toward yoga, moved away from. I have some history. Uh, uh, I have some problems in my history that blocked me from going into the military. Some drama with school and so on, and drama with ROTC, with hazing, and a bit of some drug test drama as well.
mm,
And so it was turned out to be real difficult to go into the military. I had already been in technically, and so I had a long history with the military. Tried to re-enlist. That proved real difficult. Eventually, let that go and started getting into yoga per her, uh, persuasion, and then for her guidance, coaching, and so on. And then when you get more into yoga, it naturally leads. If you dig into it long enough, it naturally leads toward the natural medicine side of things. If you dig into it, you
mm,
can go years without ever digging into it. Of course, you could spend your whole life just doing some yoga classes and some yoga videos and never really reading into much more of it or anything like that. But I dug into it real quick, and that led to the Ayurveda, the natural medicine, real quick, and I quickly got fascinated and obsessed with that, and that's led me to where I am now.
So let's talk about Ayurveda. I've never heard
Yeah,
that term before. Uh, you talk
yeah,
about it's a natural medicine. Is that like a X-Men power where you can just heal yourself, or is it what is that all about?
yeah. So it's in there's natural medicine as a buzz term, and there's Western herbalism, Western and homeopathy, and these are all terms people are somewhat familiar with in the West. And Ayurveda is becoming more and more popular. People are more and more becoming familiar with it, but perhaps people are more familiar with homeopathy as a term and just natural medicine as a term or herbalism as a term. And there's a key difference between um, homeopathy and Ayurveda.
Mm,
If you've never heard of homeopathy before, if you go to any kind of high-end grocery store and look through the supplement section, you'll see a whole bunch of uh, supplements that carry with them the buzzword homeopathy, either in the label or in the the aisle itself will be labeled homeopathy, or the bottles themselves will be labeled homeopathy. Homeopathy. It'd be things like elderberry and just herbal extracts that are put into some kind of little pill that are made real flashy with their benefits about boosting immune system and so
mm,
on. Now, essentially, that's the homeopathic approach, the homeopathic genre. People think of it as natural medicine, but it's not at all the same as Ayurveda
mm,
in the sense that um, natural medicine, as it is in the Western paradigm of homeopathy and herbalism, isn't really all that different from conventional medicine, meaning it's just the only difference in homeopathy is that they're using things that don't have double blind studies behind them or don't have patents behind them, uh, the things that um, can't be branded, can't be owned, etc. But they're essentially still using the same approach. They're treating a symptom with some kind of bottled medicine,
mm-hmm,
right? So it's the same essentially as mainstream medicine as using a pharmaceutical. There's really not a whole lot of difference. So Ayurveda is unique to both of those things in the sense that one, it comes from India and it's related with yoga. So if that wasn't clear, just get that out of the way. It's from India. It's related with yoga, but um, it's a uniquely different approach in the sense that the there's certain things that it's teaching as a paradigm that are not being taught as a general rule to people in the West
mm-hmm,
or very much to anybody. And there are uh, part of what it's teaching is a fundamental skill in reading your own body, and feeling the nuances and the movements of your own body. So
mm,
you'll see, there's a new uh, doctor's office that opened up. I saw ads for it the other day. It's called Forward, where you go in and they have all these high tech diagnostic tools that you pay a monthly fee for and get blood tests and so on. None of that would be really necessary if you could feel more what was happening in your body on your own.
mm.
and it's possible to feel more what's happening on your own. And for example, there's a tool that that's on the market right now that will test whether you're burning fat or sugar. You can either you I don't know how it works exactly, but it's a little tool, and you do something, you apply it to your body in some way. Maybe you pinch your body in somewhere, I don't know, but it'll tell you how what your metabolism is doing, whether it's burning fat or sugar.
Hmm.
And the thing about that is that you can feel that if you know what to look for
Hmm.
and you know what to feel for. It's not really that difficult to feel for. So you could feel swelling in your body, for example. You can feel um, the water levels in your body. You could feel how hard or soft your muscles are. You could feel how sticky or the stickiness that you might have,
Yeah.
or it's a subjective feeling of stickiness, or a subjective feeling of heaviness or lightness, or having energy, or being lethargic, or being fast, or being dull. You could feel these things, and the problem is they're a bit subtle, and they take practice, they take training to feel them. But you have people have an inherent ability to tell whether they're burning fat or whether they're burning sugar just on their own. And the more you could feel these things on your own, the more you're protected from disease, the more you're protected from annual sickness, from allergies, the more you're protected from larger, more serious diseases as well.
Hmm.
And that feeling ability is the key uh, part of Ayurveda. It's the key ingredient of Ayurveda, and it's what separates it from Western natural medicine.
Yeah. Because I was going to
So
ask you, what's
homeopathy.
the key difference between Eastern and Western medicine? Because what are like has there been a case that Ayurveda, for example, has been proven to cure diseases such as like cancer or other common like major diseases like that?
So yes, yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Ayurveda has been around a long, long time. It's been around. And there's various opinions
Mm-hmm.
as to how long it's been around. It's been around at least 4,000 years,
Wow.
and perhaps much longer than that. And there's massive amounts of medical, documented medical literature about it, and surrounding it, and anecdotes of it, and case studies of it, and studies of it, and so on. So it has a long history of treating and healing diseases and illnesses. Um, I could, the list
Yeah.
of what it can treat is endless, and the
Wow.
list of what it has treated is also endless. And when it is, uh, it's a massive medical paradigm. So I'm talking about the core ingredient of it, which is learning how to feel the body more and going more in depth into feeling the body. But in addition to that, there's many medical protocols, um, extensive treatment plans and programs, and herbal remedies, and medicines that have been developed over generations that are used to treat various illnesses and so on.
Have you
So
ever
it's
helped somebody be get treated?
yes, yeah, absolutely, in many things. Now, I have never treated cancer
Okay.
specifically, but I have my clients right now. I treat clients with a variety of problems. Oftentimes, or some of the most successful, um, some of my most successful case studies have been clients trying to break addictive medicine, like
Mm.
sleep medicine. for example,
Wow.
and arthritis medicines. I had one client who was. I have had two who've gotten off arthritis with Ayurveda.
Wow.
It's just stopped it completely. Inflammation's gone completely. And if you look deep into their case, which is a key characteristic of the Ayurveda protocol, is getting a very deep and big picture of the client's situation, which is distinct from how medicine is normally practiced, wherein there's not a real in-depth picture of the person's personal life. Wherein in Ayurveda, there's many subtle nuances to how someone is moving on their own in their own house, how they're eating, how they're talking, how their relationship is, that all affect their condition. And in the Western paradigm, many of those factors are assumed to not have any effect on the condition, so they're not even looked at. So it's not like uh, Western medical paradigm is doing an injustice deliberately by not looking in detail at a patient. One, a physician who's seeing a patient has a limited amount of time because of pay, right, and insurance and so on.
Yeah.
And so they don't spend a whole lot of time with people, but it's not just that they refuse to spend the time, it's that there's almost no understood reason to spend extra time. There's really, these other factors aren't even seen as being contributing factors at all. And other factors I'm referring to real subtle habits surrounding food, surrounding movement, surrounding relationships. And when you look at those from the Ayurveda lens and how they relate to the condition and you tweak those things, symptoms go away pretty
Hmm.
quickly and addictions go away pretty quickly. And you can drop off medicine like arthritis medicine pretty quickly, like sleep medicine, like anxiety medicine, like depression medicine, um, like diabetes, like insulin, like diabetes medicine, for
Wow.
example. I've treated all those things before. I've also treated, um, I've helped people lose weight. I've helped people, I've helped people get off sugar, stop eating sugar, and I would say the majority of my client base has been about getting off of sleep and psych medicines, occasionally some autoimmune medicines. Um, I have had clients who have had chronic acid reflux, and I've gotten rid of that before. Inflammation in their body, which can manifest in a bunch of different conditions,
Wow.
um, and have helped treat those conditions as well. But not yet cancer.
Yeah, you haven't
Haven't
got there yet.
haven't gotten no, haven't gotten it yet. Yeah.
I want to ask you, what type of education do you have to go into to do Ayurveda or any of yoga type stuff?
Yeah, so it's not a licensed profession.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of variety out there, and if anyone's interested in learning, there's um, two major schools in the United States that I recommend. I went to one of them, but in addition to um, those two schools being the California College of Ayurveda, headed by Dr. Mark Halpern, and then the uh, school, and it's called the Ayurveda Institute, headed by Dr. Vasant Lad. Those are the two most prestigious in the United States. Of course, they're in India. There's several in India that are prestigious, and it's a licensed profession in
Hmm.
India. And but in the United States, there's hundreds of other programs that are less prestigious than those two and less extensive and less regulated. And
Mm-hmm.
some the range goes from anything from a weekend course that'll give you the title of Ayurveda specialist and have you talking to people after just a weekend to a month to 3 months to 6 months. The school I went to, I've I went through a program that lasted me about 4 years, just under 4 years, and it's the school still offers more education for me, so I still have more to go with the school. In addition to that, it also has an internship, and there's a lot of oversight and so on. So that's why I recommend that one. It's one of the most extensive and prestigious ones.
Yeah.
But really, you could just choose what kind of education you get, and I would suggest you choose a more extensive one. But there's a whole lot in the industry where in the yoga and the Ayurveda industry wherein um, a a lot of what you're given is not deeply understood. So, for example, if you read some English books on Ayurveda, you'll get a lot of flowery language that isn't really understood very well, not even by the authors,
Wow.
oftentimes, or at least it seems. So, for example, um, uh, in a lot of these Ayurveda books and even in Ayurveda courses, you'll learn some fundamental philosophy about Ayurveda. And one of the first things you'll learn is the primordial cause of all disease, the root cause of all disease. And the way it's phrased in almost everywhere, as far as I know, I'm the only person who's phrased it in this other way. But the normal way that it's phrased is that the root cause of all disease is forgetting your true nature as spirit.
Mm.
And and so it's tied with this kind of new agey, flowery spiritualism, Ayurveda is. And hence it's tied with yoga, which often gets tied in with new agey spiritualism stuff as well. But looking at it from a medical paradigm lens, how does it help a client to know that the problem with their condition is that they've forgotten their true nature as spirit?
Mm.
It doesn't help them, is my point. It's not practical, uh, it's not any helpful piece of knowledge. It's not helpful to know that. And that's because it's not understood. That phrase is it's just not understood. It's translated from Sanskrit, Indian language, the ancient language of Ayurveda and yoga. It's translated to be forgetting your true nature as spirit, and it's poorly translated, and hence not understood. Whereas if you dig a little bit, you can see what that phrase is really more trying to say, and it will give you actually some practical insight into what's causing problems in the first place.
Yeah. I want
Yeah.
to I want to
So
go over something with you. Since you're a yoga instructor and all this, I wanted to. Some of my friends wanted me to ask some things, and I want to try to debunk some stereotypes about yoga and yogis and everything in that world. If you're up for the challenge.
yeah, sure.
All right. So the first one is yoga is just about stretching.
Oh yeah, these are classic, classic things. Yeah, yeah. So no, it's not just about stretching. The modern face of yoga is is really a combination of Western gymnastics from the 1900s and um, some esoteric uh, offshoot Indian cult
Mm-hmm.
health practices that you would call tantric practices. So when you go to a yoga class and you see down dog and warrior one and all that, a lot of that stuff is from Europe in the first place. So you wouldn't even when we're talking about yoga, um, it's more like that word has come in and become an umbrella term for these other things that are gymnastics. And there's nothing a whole lot special about doing a yoga class unless you're on your high horse and you're you know smelling your own scent too much and looking down on someone doing Pilates or something. I mean, it's good to relax and all
Yeah.
that, but essentially it's it's gymnastics
Mm-hmm.
is what it is. So, which is great. It's good exercise and calming your breath and so on, but it can lead you into yoga. But really, yoga is is what I mentioned earlier, which is a deep listening to your body. The word yoga means to be in sync, to be in sync with rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
to be in sync with what you hear, to be in sync with what's around you, but especially with what you hear. This theme of hearing is very big in yoga, and the problem is that the problem of disease is that you're not there's no listening. Meaning, if you're eating, there's so much of the time people block out the feelings of their body. They numb the feelings of their body. And that's a kind of not listening. So you could be eating and your body is maybe telling you to stop. And you could choose not to listen and you can choose to ignore. And instead, the delight of the taste can be pulling you to eat more, even though your body is asking you to stop. And that's essentially a state that's away from yoga, and that's going to cause disease. And the further you are away from that, the more disease that's going to happen for
Mm-hmm.
you. And you can be closer or further away from that by degrees. And the further you are away, the harder life is going to be for you. The more immediate gratification you'll gain, but the harder life. So yoga essentially is listening to your body like this, and doing a class will will guide you to listen to your body more. So when you're doing a class and you're doing these exercises and so on, uh, and you're tuning into your breath, a big part of it is paying attention to your breath and being sure not to jump ahead of your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go further than your nerves can handle you. So, wherein if you're in a gym and you're taking pre workout, the whole point is to go further than your body and not listen to your body. If you were listening to your body, you wouldn't be taking pre workout,
Mm-hmm.
right? You would sleep, right? If someone's taking pre workout because they don't have enough energy to make it through their exercise, they're not listening. That means their body's telling them to rest. Instead, they push through with a stimulant and they don't listen. So inside a yoga class, the whole point of being in the yoga class and the key difference between a yoga class going to the gym and exercising is that there's much more emphasis placed on listening to your nervous system and strengthening your nervous system, which is much more important than strengthening your muscle tissue
Mm.
because it's the basis of your muscle tissue, right? And you could have big muscles, but they're very inefficient and the nerves in them are weak. Or you could be like Bruce Lee and have very little muscle tissue compared to someone much bulkier, but the nerves fire much better and they're much stronger
Mm.
and the energy is much greater. And so when you're in a yoga class, you listen, you push yourself as far as you can until you find your edge and you watch for if you go over your edge. And it's a practice of listening to that delicate space of where your edge is. And so it conditions you to connect to your body more, which then conditions you to yoga more, which is listening, which then helps you respond to symptoms and disease, which helps keep you healthier.
Mm.
So this is what yoga is, as opposed to, it has nothing to do with stretching
The
at
next one we
all.
had was yoga is only for girls.
Oh yeah, yeah, this is a good one.
This is like the most common one that kept being submitted in.
Really, yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny. That's a good one. You know, that's that's um, that's a funny thing. You know, yoga is attractive. Uh, maybe yoga has become attractive to women and dominated by women
Mm.
now, but it's traditionally only for men.
Really?
Actually, no, I take that back. But
Oh.
you know, it's not only for men, but is something that kings would retire themselves and go do, and
Wow.
certainly, and in the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, from between 1000 and 1700, uh, was, you could call it the Dark Ages of India. I think India was occupied by the Muslims at the time, and so on, and household yogic practices were banned. And so before that time, women did have a healthy share in the practice, but still it was dominated by men.
Really?
They had a healthy share, but it was dominated by men. And then between 1,000 and don't hold me to exact dates here,
You're all
but
good.
roughly 1,000 and roughly 1,700. If some tantric historian is listening to me and nitpicking me, whatever. Well, anyways, but during that time, when the government banned household practice of it, it became almost totally dominated by men because it was something that was within was the domain of the homeless, essentially, meaning the wandering monks were the keepers of yoga during that time. And to be a wandering monk is a rough life and is not friendly for women. So it became dominated by men. Homeless people are rough with each other and they're brutal with each other. And it's funny, if you go to India and you decide to be homeless in India, you're honored in India,
Really?
or you're considered like an ascetic, a spiritual guru person. If you just renounce all your relationships and your possessions and you just wander around begging for food, you're considered a wise man. People will just give you stuff and ask you for advice, and they'll be nice to you. Obviously there's some exception to that, but the culture is much different about it there. Whereas here, someone could, like, I remember the other day we were walking in the park and saw a homeless guy sleeping on the park. In India, people would be nice to that guy, and he would be considered like on a spiritual journey, and he is. Even in the United States, those guys. the homeless here, whether they're going through hard times or not, it's still a spiritual journey they're doing. And in any case, it was dominated by men,
Wow.
dominated by men.
That's
Um,
interesting because like I never
yeah,
thought that was the history of it. That I knew that it was in a spiritual religious way in India, but I didn't know that it was only men that were accustomed to doing it. That's interesting. What do you think changed throughout history? Like what, you know, how did it become almost a stereotype that women are the more yoga people out there? What do you think changed?
Well, it's kind of a recent thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a recent thing within the last 100 years.
Mm.
Yeah. Before that, I mean, like I said, women had a healthy share in the practice, in tantric practice. Uh, it's traditionally the domain of what you would call the Brahmin caste,
Mm-hmm.
which is traditionally only men, right? So the priest caste in India is traditionally only men. And then there's the tantric tradition, which is to be fair separate from yoga, but it's still related. And women would have more of a share in that tradition.
Mm.
And then, like I said, during the medieval period, it became more men. And then in the recent uh, couple of centuries, it started to move away from that. And in the last century, it's as it's moved into the West, it has become dominated by women, and that's a dynamic of the market.
Yeah.
So that's just a result of marketing and the the ripe ground of the economy.
Because if you
And
look at like with yoga, the big thing with yoga in America, for example, is yoga pants, and
right,
with women wearing those, and men are like, oh, and when you watch a yoga like mat company ad, it's always a female carrying one. It's always a
right,
female doing yoga. But yeah, yeah,
yeah.
marketing is always a thing.
You know, women in general are more um, have more aptitude towards spirituality
Mm.
in general. So obviously there's exceptions to that, but you know, I'm just speculating here, but you could sort of project um, back how this sort of thing played out with uh, yoga being introduced to a generally closed-minded public, and women also generally are more open-minded and more spiritual, so they would naturally be the one to receive it more to a society that was brand new to it. And so when you get people, when you get the pioneers, the first recipients of it, when they're women, and then you have big names and examples of women who like Shiva Ray, for example,
Mm.
and a few others who pioneer in the industry. Now there have been men that have pioneered in the industry, and so Indian men also have come over and started their own traditions like Osho and Yogi Bhajan and Swami Rama and so on. But again, toward a closed society, a Western society that is not interested or is not oriented to yoga as much as Indian society is, uh, it's going to skew toward the population that is statistically higher in open-mindedness and higher in spiritual traits,
Mm.
which are women. Whereas in India, it's already assumed all the men already know yoga and
Yeah.
they already understand the context of it. Whereas here, uh, the men are not oriented to it; they're oriented toward Western uh, mindset, and they're generally more closed-minded. There's like yoga. What is this yoga? I don't understand. No, I'll just lift weights.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you doing stretching? I don't need to stretch. What is this spiritual stuff? I go to church. I don't
Yeah.
need that. So it's just a result of how the market played out, really. That's all it is.
My last stereotype that was submitted. This is an interesting one. Yoga people are vegans.
Oh yeah, that's funny. No,
Are you a vegan?
no, absolutely not. No, no. And I think there's a big misunderstanding, and I may stir up some stuff with this now,
Oh
but
no.
there's a lot in the yoga world about nonviolence,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot about nonviolence, and there's a lot of assumption. There's a lot of overlap with Hinduism, and there are certainly some adherents to Hinduism that are very adamant about owning yoga and about having a kind of exclusive relationship with yoga. And there are some adherents to Hinduism that would say that anyone who's not Hindu should not be doing yoga. And anyone who's doing yoga who's not Hindu is stealing from the culture. So there's that paradigm is out there right now, and so Hinduism follows a vegetarian, not vegan, but a vegetarian protocol, and they would certainly claim that yoga must be vegetarian, and there's a case to be made from the textual evidence for that, but I don't think I disagree with that. There's some ambiguity with that. Like there's texts in the yoga lineage that would seem to imply that to be in a yoga practice, you have to be vegetarian because you have to ascribe to non-violence, and eating meat is a kind of violence, and you're causing karma by killing another animal and so on. I don't agree with any of that, really. And I don't think it's inherent in the text that people point to that that's true. I can make a case for the opposite of that pretty well. And so that's not the only opinion that's out there.
Mm.
There's certainly other opinions that might more align with what I'm alluding to, but they're definitely not the majority. But I think in a lot of cases the majority is off the mark. So yeah.
Yeah.
So no, not vegetarian, and certainly not vegan.
That's interesting because like when I talk to my friends who are predominantly guys, and I sit here and I go, "Oh yeah, my aunt does yoga." The first thing they always ask is, "Oh, is she a vegan?"
Oh
And
yeah,
I'm like,
that's
"No."
yeah.
uh, but yeah, so many different stereotypes. But I want to ask you: do you currently own or operate a studio?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
talk about that. What's it called, and
yeah,
where is it located at?
yeah. The studio is located in East Fort Worth. It's called Radiant Sun Academy.
Nice.
Uh, had it open for 8 years. Yeah,
And
it's
what type of stuff do you guys do? Do you just do yoga, or are there other activities that people can get involved in?
yeah. So we have yoga classes there. We have all sorts of workshops that are on that workshops that conduct interesting alternative activities like breath work exercises and gong meditation exercises, and um, things you might call witchy projects, witchy exercises. Um, there's Ayurveda workshops occasionally. We do in-depth yoga and Ayurveda training out of there as well. Teacher training out of there as well. Meditation classes, and then of course, yoga classes as people normally think of them.
And if somebody wants to know more information about your studio, where they can find it?
So our website is radiantsunacademy.com. That's the best place. Go to our website, send a message.
And that'll be in
Up
the
on,
link in the description for everybody in the video and audio
yeah.
versions.
Oh yeah. Cool.
So James, I gotta ask you a very important question. Have you heard of pod decks? It's
This
custom I have
is
to ask
fun.
that.
Yeah. No, I've never heard.
Oh, let me inform you about it. So
Right.
pod decks are these cool deck of cards that allow you to make your podcast, videos, interviews, icebreakers more awesome and more entertaining. Today we're going to be using the interview deck, so it's a bunch of random questions that Poddex wants me to ask you, James. But if you want to learn more about Poddex or get your own pack, you can go to poddex.com and use promo code TCLIVE to get 10% off your first purchase. That's TCLIVE. That's TC Live to get 10% off your first purchase. James, are you ready for your Poddex interview?
Yeah, let's go.
Dun dun dun. No, it's fine. It's not scary. All right. First question. If you can change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
Oh, goodness. This is right deep, isn't it?
Right?
Let's see. Goodness gracious. Okay. We'll skip that one.
Okay, we'll come back to that one. All right. What is your most treasured possession?
Well, I don't know. I don't have any.
No?
No.
Okay, that's a good one. Mine is a first edition Superman comic book. Uh,
Yeah, I
super
guess
rare.
mine would be a sword.
What would it be?
I have a sword
Oh, really?
that's real sentimental to me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Is it a real one or is it like a toy?
It's a real one.
Okay, I respect that. I have
Yeah.
a sword up there. You can't see it in the video, but it's from the Civil War era.
Oh, cool, man.
And so like my grandfather had it, and I had to clean it once in a while to get the rust off and everything. But yeah, it's up there hanging above my door, and it's really cool. Um, what will people look back at us 50 years from now and be shocked and appalled by?
Oh, how much ADHD is rampant in the
Really, 88? How much ADHD is rampant and everything? Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah, and how much the kids are on screens.
Yeah, it is. That is a good one because everywhere you look,
Yeah.
there's a kid on a screen, or if they're like screaming and yelling, they're just handed an iPad and then they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Who are your real life heroes?
Bruce Lee.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Any reason why?
I just got this. I watched him when I was. I practiced a martial art called Kali, Kali, and got into it when I was first 10 years old, and it was because of watching a Bruce Lee movie. So it may not be based much in reality. Perhaps also Ross Perot, only because of once I heard about him during the Iranian, I think is what it was, the Iranian Revolution. A couple of his employees were trapped in the embassy. I may be getting this story wrong, but this is how I heard it. A couple of his employees were trapped in the embassy along with several other Americans, and him being the leader of IBM at the time, commissioned his own mercenary team his own paramilitary mercenary team privately on his own and sent them into the embassy to get his own employees out and left everyone else. Just grabbed his own IBM employees.
Wow.
And that seemed pretty cool to me. So
Yeah.
it'd be working for that guy.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
talent do you most would like to have?
Creative writing.
Dude, that's a good one. I need that too.
Yeah, right.
Like, I didn't realize how much lack I have in that when I started making movies and like
Mm-hmm,
writing scripts and everything, and it's just like, oh, it's awful.
mm-hmm.
What's
Yeah, I'm
your
working.
You're working on it?
Yeah.
What are some of your guilty pleasures?
Uh, um, they're 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 too horrible to talk about.
Okay, okay.
No. It was like, no, I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
All right. I got three left. You pick left, right, or middle.
Okay. Middle.
Middle. If you could undo one moment in life, what would it be and why?
Oh, they'd be moments that I've lied.
Hmm. Really one.
Yeah, and there are a couple of moments where, yeah. Actually, maybe I don't know. It's a tricky question
It is
because
a tricky
faith is
question.
a
It's
tricky
deep.
thing, you know. So like, I got expelled for coke, uh, at school. I
Wow.
was in college, and I was about to graduate. I was 2 weeks from graduating, and I popped hot for coke 2 weeks before I graduated because of, and it only stays in your system 72 hours. So just 48 hours prior to arriving back at school, I was in Texas, uh, making some poor decisions with some of my old Texas friends, you
Yeah.
know. So maybe I would do that, but then I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a
The
fate
bad
to try.
times, the bad times, yes, they're bad, but, it makes you who you are today, you know, and it makes you better. And you learn from
Right.
those mistakes. And yeah,
Yeah. So that's a tricky question.
it is. All right.
Yeah.
Two more, left or right?
Right.
Right. All right. If you were to die tomorrow, what little thing would you regret not doing?
Oh, playing with my kids.
Mm, that's a good one.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you have kids? Yeah. How many kids do you have?
Two,
Two. How old are they?
7 and 5.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And the last question: what book belongs in everyone's bookshelf?
Oh, well, if they are a parent, it would be the continuum concept.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never read it, but
I didn't expect to know that book, but that's all right.
yeah. I want to ask you this last question before we end.
Yeah.
In your own words, what is success?
Oh, what is success?
What is success?
Good question.
And that's my question. That's not even Poddex's question.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good. What is success? Playing, I guess, like continuing to reach for playing.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a good one.
continue to reach out and play and try to run and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And being able to do that and
Yeah,
not being held down from other stuff, and yeah,
Yeah,
I respect that.
the depression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, if you like those questions and you want to hear the rest of them or check out any of their other decks, go to poddex.com. Use promo code TCLIVE to get 10% off your first purchase. Well, James, I want to thank you today for coming on my show and talking about the world of yoga and Ayurveda and all of that. I learned a lot today, and I appreciate you teaching me all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, man. My pleasure.
Where can they find you?
Yeah. Like I said, go to the website, and that's you can reach out to me or reach out to the studio in general. Yeah, that's the best place.
Well, James, I want to thank you for coming on. And guys, Trenton Chappell Live, 2 more episodes. We have an episode June 26th, and then June 30th is our season finale. Well, that's pretty much it. James, thank you again for coming on again, and I wish you health and wellness, my friend.
Yeah, you too, Trenton.
All right, guys. Peace out.